Chapter 3. The Creation of the World and the Sacrifice of the Lamb. The revelation of St. John leads us through several forecourts and antechambers before we are shown into the temple of great trials and decisions. After we pass the gate of the initial vision of the Son of Man, the 7 messages made us survey the whole circle of humanity. Even now the trials do not begin at once. The patience of God with men is reflected in the structure of the apocalyptic book. Not without preparations can we face the storms and tempests which are to come. We must receive strength from the primal well of being. Before our souls are raised to the successive planes of vision, spiritual hearing, and immediate contact with the Spirit, they are first invited to share in the calm solemnity of a cosmic Sabbath. Never again, even to the very end, does the apocalypse lead us through such wonderful, profound stillness as in the 2 chapters between the 7 messages and the 7 seals. In quick succession, through the 3 stages of picture, word, and being, which later unfold in the 3 cycles of 7, we witness, with the writer, a sublime act. First a picture appears. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. What panorama will appear at this first glance? The dramatic experience awaiting him who enters remains hidden at first. The door stands high above mankind. Only he who is able to rise to the heavenly level can see through it, perhaps even pass through it. To the picture is added a sound. The voice, which is like a trumpet, says, "Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." A foretaste of the trumpet blast had opened the soul of the apocalyptic writer to the vision of the Son of Man, and raises him now, too, to the higher level of the open door. Presently the door becomes a window. We gaze, with the apocalyptic writer, into the interior of the world. The sphere of first principles is revealed. The perception which now begins penetrates to the very substance of the Spirit. Immediately I was in the Spirit. The solemn picture which now appears before the soul of the seer consists of several symmetrical figures arranged in concentric circles. The center is formed by a throne, and one that sits on it. But while we are tempted to picture the one who sits on the throne in human form, the seer deters us from doing so. He that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. He is a starry center of light from which 2 diversely colored rays proceed. Jasper is a greenish shimmering jewel. But in the past, the type of jasper, which was almost white, was considered the most valuable. It shone like a diamond. It was pure white light, gleaming with green only from a distance. The sardine stone is like a cornelian, a blood-red gem. From the throne, which forms the central point of the heavenly sphere, red and white beams of light issue in harmonious accord. These are the revelation of the very Godhead. Here, in the realm of prototypes, we meet the polarity of white and red, familiar everywhere in fairy tales, legends, and symbols of historical life. Whether it is the charming story of Snow White and Rose Red, or the legend of Floss and Blanche Fleur, the red rose and the white lily, or the polarity of the red and white roses in English history. The duality of white and red always expresses the consonance between spirit and soul. The spiritual element shines in the clear white light. The soul element glows in the color of the red blood. He who sits on the throne is the radiant source of the original light, differentiated according to spirit and soul, as in light and heat, revealing the eternal consonance of soul and spirit. The first of the concentric figures round the throne is the colored circle of the rainbow. It is described as in sight like an emerald, green the color of life, and center of the sevenfold, the color harmony gives its character to the whole. Round the central point of light, another circle is seen, not erect like the rainbow, but horizontal. Round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders, clothed in white raiment. and they had on their heads crowns of gold. For the first time, beings emerged from the darkness of the cosmic background. 24 representatives of the world become visible. Their white garments show their complete permeation by the Spirit, and by their golden crowns they are recognizable as stewards and bearers of the thoughts of God. They are the true cosmic thinkers. Perhaps the 24 elders may be pictured, unlike the throned one, in human form. Yet they belong to exalted superhuman realms of existence. The ring-encircled center is not standing motionless. It is a central point of scintillating force. Rays and currents proceed from it, only comparable to what on earth is thunder and lightning. The lightning issues in flames. In seven creator beings, light-bearing, like flaming torches, and thronging closely round the throne. These are the 7 Elohim, which is the beginning of the created heaven and earth. Out of the throne proceed lightnings and thunderings and voices. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. In the 24 elders and the 7 lamps of fire, the powers and principles of space and time are revealed. The former, the majestic and calm, the latter, charged with fiery power, yet holding back their creative work. Around all this is an enigmatic picture. An enigmatic picture appears as a sphere. To the circles and the symmetrical polygons, an all-embracing globular form is added. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. A spherical sea, in the process of crystallizing, surrounds the throne and its circles. Finally, the fullness of the heavenly figures is completed by the 4 living creatures. 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. The first beast was like a lion, the second beast like a calf. The third beast had the face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And all the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within and without. And they did not rest day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. The 4 beasts are clearly described. They now begin, really, to look like earthly creatures. They are the beholders of the divine cosmic principles, grouped around the radiant central point of heaven. They are utterly absorbed in the contemplation of the throne and its surroundings, and their tranquil contemplation releases from within them the eternal hymn of praise, the eternal Sanctus. The symmetrical groupings seem to be divided into 2 strata. A giving and taking a cosmic creation seem to confront each other. Can it really be in the picture of the 4 beasts? Can it really be that in the picture of the 4 beasts, the world of creatures is contrasted with creators? The book of the Revelation began with a picture of man in the great initial vision of the first chapter. Now animal forms appear for the first time. Among these, one indeed has the form of a man, but the figure of the 4 living creatures is no more represent earthly animals than does the vision of the Son of Man stand for man as an earthly creation. Isaiah describes the majestic winged beings who sing the sublime sanctus around the throne of God, not as animals, but as seraphim. Indeed, it is in exalted hierarchical realms that we must seek the beings who appear to us in the picture of the 4 beasts. We touch a sphere to which the ancient Egyptian works of art also point, to a sphere which represents the gods with the heads of bulls, eagles, or lions. A lofty realm of gods containing animal prototypes is revealed to us. The animals on earth are but copies and reflections fallen from heaven. One might be inclined to interpret the circles and figures of the beginning of chapter 4 astronomically. Could not the ring of 24 elders round the throne reflect the 12 signs of the zodiac? Could not the 7 spiritual lamps point to the 7 planets? Cannot the Empyrean, the crystal heaven, as the ancient world called the sphere above the fixed stars, be recognized in the sea of glass? Even the figures of the 4 living creatures may be found in the sky. They are the constellations of the lion, the bull, the water carrier, and the scorpion. The scorpion appears as the counterpart of the eagle, which form the great cross in the zodiac. In the heaven of the fixed stars, earlier civilizations saw the higher animals, of which the animal kingdom on earth is a distant shadow. This is why they called the ring of stars through which the sun and planets move the zodiac. From the Greek, zoon, animal. However, a reference to the constellations of the starry sky is not a sufficient explanation of the apocalyptic symbols. The starlit heaven itself is just another apocalypse, which its picture alphabet corresponds in a sense to the apocalypse of St. John. The one book can illume the other, but it cannot explain it. We are dealing with two different translations of the same original text. What is the original text? At this point, we must reflect once more on the nature of apocalyptic vision. At the beginning and the end of the Bible, we have two books which deal with facts above the level of rational perception. In Genesis, the Bible begins with a supersensible vision. Genesis springs from a spiritual retrospect, for it is not possible by outward methods to look into the ages long past, the first stages of evolution, because creation began before the material phase came into existence. To the retrospect of Genesis is now added the prophetic prevision of the apocalypse, which reveals the secrets of the future. The retrospect from which the Genesis springs is nothing else than an inverted prophecy. But before the prophetic vision of the seer John comes to the point of revealing the laws and secrets of the future, with the seven seals, trumpets, and vials of wrath, it first plunges once again, retrospectively, into the very beginning of evolution. It is only from this retrospect that the prophetic prevision is brought forth. We must regard the 4th and 5th chapters of the Apocalypse as a New Testament story of the creation, a New Testament Genesis. Here the picture of the sea of glass may serve as a key. We witness a definite moment in the evolution of the world. Eons of evolution have already run their course in the spiritual sphere. Now comes the first germination of physical, corporeal existence. Out of all the enveloping spiritual sphere of the heavenly ocean, the material world, the prima materia, still pure and virginal, begins to crystallize. The world of matter is born in the form of shining crystals. In the picture of the sea of glass, the seer beholds the moment of birth, the status nascendi of the physical world. He is witness of the beginning of cosmic incarnation. What does the sight of a rock crystal or an amethyst give us? Why does the sight of a rock crystal or an amethyst give us such unusual delight? These star-like forms fascinate us, as if they were not of this world at all. Every crystal is, so to speak, a reminiscence of the original condition of our earthly world. Earthly bodily existence had its origin in just such transparent crystal purity. But in the course of its evolution, it has not been able to preserve its original crystal clarity. Much turbidity and loss of form has overpowered the world of earthly matter. Today, crystals are reminders of the world as it was originally planned, and every snow crystal which we admire is like a star structure before it melts, like a greeting from the spear from which earthly things once rose, as radiant, strong, paradisal prima materia. The moment of cosmic evolution, recognizable in the sea of glass, signifies the same stage of the development of the human being. Man already existed in the pre-physical eons, but he was as yet like a drop of water in the sea, completely contained within the divine womb of higher beings. There was as yet no individuality. At the moment when the crystal heavens formed themselves from the ocean of the spirit, as the first spherical seed of physical existence, at first, inkling of individual corporeality, and hence a future consciousness of self and spiritual identity, may have passed through the soul of mankind. The sea of glass rose as a mirror. The transparent cosmos formed something corresponding to the foil behind the glass, something which turned the glass into a mirror. The very first reflection of himself, a first consciousness of his individuality, confronted man in the picture of the crystal. Hence, a crystal speaks not only to the primal beginnings of the material world, but also to the first tentative sense of ego consciousness. And it suggests that we become true bearers of an immortal ego when the crystal clearness of spiritual thought can dwell within us and radiate out from us like a star. Crystal clear thoughts in the human mind correspond to the crystals in nature. Like the sea of glass, the rainbow which the seer perceives around the heavenly throne is a sign of the spiritual origin of creation. When a rainbow is formed in the sky today, it is as though the world remembers its creation out of the light. Into these pictures of the first beginnings, the vision of the four beasts is placed. At first sight, it seems a step downward, when the great opening vision of man in the first chapter is followed in the fourth chapter by the picture of the beasts. But what is it that distinguishes man from the animals? Man, as he has become in the course of the world evolution, has an individual soul, whereas animals have a communal group soul according to their species. They remain in a condition through which the human being has passed. Man did not appear on the scene as an individual being immediately. But where were men at the beginning, when the earth was crystallizing as a sea of glass out of the spiritual cosmos? They were already there, but still retained in the womb of the higher beings, who, representing them, lent their divine consciousness to take the place of the human consciousness which would come into existence in the future. The four living creatures are seraphic beings, who, like great group souls, held at first the souls of men concealed within them. Each of the four prepares one aspect of future humanity. One of them dreams the seed of human thinking. He appears as a heavenly eagle. In the second seraph, the beginnings of human feeling are formed in embryo, the forces of the human heart. This seraph appears in the form of a lion. The figure of the bull is assumed by the seraph which prepares the human will. Together with the eagle, the lion, and the bull, there is the fourth sphere, whose seraph portrays the whole man, in consonance of thinking, feeling, and willing. In him, the human figure itself rises on the horizon of evolution. The apocalyptic vision of the fourth chapter presents creator and creature standing as it were face to face. Soon movement and development will begin, but as yet everything is filled with divine calm and solemnity. Creation still rests in the sphere of perpetuity. The wheels of time are not yet revolving. The hierarchical realm which contains the creatures is full of wonder and worship, absorbed in contemplation of the creative cosmic center. If we ever wish to ask the paradoxical question, how created beings were occupied before the creation, here we have the answer. Absorption and contemplation of the Creator, aroused in the sphere of the created, the primal hymn of praise, the great Sanctus, which filled the cosmos like an echo of the creative word itself. Proceeding to the fifth chapter, we become aware that movement now enters into the deep calm and solemnity. The divine stillness represented by maturing creation. Now in the right hand of him who sits on the throne is a book is visible, written within and without. It contains the ground plans and blueprints of the inner and outer world which is to be created. The building is to begin. But who will loose the seven seals of the book? Not until the book is open can perpetuity change into the stream of time. A dramatic tension arises. A being, like a herald, appears on the scene. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof?" Like an incarnation of divine resolve to continue the work of creation, the mighty angel steps forward. Eternal duration would become cosmic stagnation if nothing further happened. The strong angel, standing alone, radiates the will to set in motion what was threatening to stagnate. No name is mentioned, but the being wields something of the authority of the Archangel Michael, whom the Apocalypse repeatedly presents as a power intent on overcoming stagnation and on carrying forward new developments. The challenge of the angel hangs motionless in the cosmos. No man in heaven, nor on earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to read therein. Grief-stricken, the seer John shares in the cosmic tension. He says, "And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open the book." The cosmic anguish engulfs him too. At last the tension is relaxed. One of the circle of 24 elders cries, "Weep not! Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, hath prevailed to open the book, and to loose the 7 seals thereof." We must ourselves enter into the dramatic sequence of the pictured events which now follow. Do not let us suppose that one of the 24 elders had always known what he now proclaims. On him, too, the urgent question had been weighing. He can now announce the solution only because he was the first to recognize the releasing and redeeming power, like a watchman who at last spies on the horizon the sail of an anxiously awaited ship. The perception of this elder affects the relaxation of tension. We maintain the symbolic conception. The words of the elder indicate the direction from which the rescuing movement will come. It is the heavenly region where, among the 4 living creatures, the lion stands. Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has won the victory. But even from the realm of the seraphic lion, the crucial deed cannot be done unless a change takes place. The liberating cry indicated the region of the lion, but there, in the place to which all eyes now turn, is no longer the lion appears, but the lamb. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent forth into all the earth. The Lamb approaches the throne, and takes the sealed book from the hand of him who sits on the throne. It is able to loose the seals. But how is it possible that there, where the lion was standing, suddenly the Lamb appears? Lofty divine beings have performed a great deed. A divine sacrifice has been offered. Through the sacrificial self-transformation carried out by a most exalted being, creation has overcome the threat of stagnation and begun to flow again. In his short story, The Child of the Lion, Goethe has painted a human, poetic picture of the cosmic event to which the apocalypse here points. In the story, the child fearlessly approaches the lion before whom men tremble. He soothes it with a song and coaxes it to come tamely out of its den, while he lovingly frees it from the thorn which was sticking in its foot. A verse in the child's song runs thus: "For the eternal rules on earth, over the sea his glance prevails. Lions must now lambs become, and the waves must backward roll. The bright sword rests and does not strike. Faith and hope are both fulfilled. Wonder-working is the love which reveals itself in prayer." Just as in Goethe's story, so the great cosmic drama of creation. Love is the force which transforms the lion into the lamb. From the direction of the seraphic realm wherein the seed of human feeling is sown, a god approaches. He is the bearer of cosmic love. This exalted divine being, who might well rule as a king, assumes the form which makes him the ministering brother of nascent creation. He offers himself up and appears in the form of the sacrificial lamb. Later, the picture of the lamb was used to represent him who suffered sacrificial death on Golgotha. But he who afterwards took upon himself the sacrifice of incarnation and death on earth had already played a decisive part, though through a great primal sacrifice at the creation of the world itself. Just as he later renewed the world through death and resurrection, so at the very beginning of evolution, he made the birth of our world possible through his sacrificial intervention. A great sacrifice of Christ, the Lamb of God, was made already at the beginning of the world. Golgotha was, in the human sphere, the decisive renewal and enhancement of the primal sacrifice whereby the world came into being. This is the deepest principle of the world. From the very beginning, a force has been active to overcome the stagnation, to set the wheel of evolution in motion, to give new life to the dying. It is not the superhuman, heroic power of the 4 seraphic living creatures. From the picture of the Lamb we realize the highest magic in all the world, the power of sacrifice and love. In the apocalypse, images which follow, the Lamb does not supplant the 4 beasts. He is rather a kind of epitome, a further stage of their evolution. He is the symbol and sign of the Lamb mankind enters upon the earthly path. Henceforth it remains beholden to the ideal of sacrifice and love. We are told that the Lamb has 7 eyes. He is no longer covered, as the 4 beasts are, with eyes within and without. Once the actual earthly developments have started, progress is not possible without renunciation of the original fullness of heavenly vision. Together with the 7 eyes, the Lamb has 7 horns. The picture of the horns points to the first earthly organs of the human being, which result from densification. The number of eyes and horns express the balance between above and below, between the organs of divine vision and the first stage of bodily nature vouchsafed to mankind at the moment of Earth's genesis. The sevenfold eyes through which the Lamb beholds the progress of the creative work initiated by him counterbalance the sevenfold horns, all the more effectively because in them the sevenfold creative spirits are mirrored, the Elohim described before as lamps. When the Lamb appears, the 24 elders fall down in adoration before him. Each of them carries a golden harp and censer in his hand. Sighs of relief turn into hymns of praise before the throne of God. When the elders become witnesses of the divine sacrifice which sets creation in motion, heavenly music and offerings of incense proceed from the realms of the hierarchical beings in gratitude and praise. Seen from the spirit realm, the creation of the world appears as a ritual celebration in which the angel kingdoms sing and make music. The sound of the harp, however, is not merely an accompaniment. It is like the clangor which, in Novalis' tale, sounds as from a distant workshop. It belongs to the creative sound which brings forth the world, the Word, in the beginning. And when we read of the elders, they sang a new song, we may realize that the song of the angel kingdom, join in the music of creation, which brings to birth a new world. Later in the 14th and 15th chapters of the Apocalypse, pictures arise in the prophetic prevision, which correspond to the retrospective pictures of the New Testament Genesis, which we are discussing here. For the second time, the picture of the Lamb appears. He stands on Mount Zion, surrounded by the 144,000. Now the Lamb himself forms the center of future humanity. The universe is filled anew with the sound of harps. I heard a voice from heaven as the sound of many waters, and as the voice of the great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sang, as it were, a new song before the throne, and before the 4 beasts and 24 elders. When the new creation, the new heaven and new earth, begin to tear themselves away from the aging cosmos of the old earth, the music of evolving existence begins to sound again. Now, however, it is men who throng around the Lamb, men who sing the creative song of progress to the music of the harps. In the 15th chapter, the prophetic vision penetrates into the same picture sphere as the seer's first retrospection. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass. But here it is mingled with fire. When the new planetary incarnation of the earth is formed, the warmth of soul, which advancing humanity will have developed during the Earth Age, must form the inner fire and the blood circulation of this new creation. Then, by the glassy sea of the future, will stand those who, heart-bearers themselves, have followed the Lamb, the ideal of sacrifice and love. And I saw them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Then men will themselves have authority over the word of creation, which brings forth the new world. The role of the gods in the story of the first creation passes over to men at the birth of the new creation. That, however, is only possible if men are strong enough to offer the sacrifice which before was offered by the gods. Love is a greater magician than force. The line in Goethe's story, "Love is wonder working," expresses the deepest cosmic principle. Sacrifice is the power which calls a new world into being. At the beginning, the middle and end of earthly existence stands the picture of the Lamb. Christ's great sacrifice made possible the first creation of the earth. At the turning point of time, through the sacrifice of the Lamb on Golgotha, the miracle of the resurrection was brought about. At the end of our earth age, Through men who have learned to offer themselves together with the sacrifice of the Lamb, the resurrection of the earth will be added to the resurrection of man, achieved through Christ.